She thought running away would save her. She was wrong. The girl who fled an arranged marriage to a stranger ended up falling for him anyway. But here's the twist. He knew exactly who she was the whole time. This is the story of Ava Moretti, the woman who discovered that sometimes the cage isn't made of bars. Sometimes it's made of trust. Stay with me until the end. Drop a like and comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The rain in Barcelona fell differently than it did in New York. Softer, gentler, like it was asking permission before it touched you. Ava Moretti stood under the narrow awning of a corner bakery on Carrer de la Princesa, watching the water streak down cobblestones that had probably been there longer than her entire bloodline. Her hair was soaked. Her jacket clung to her shoulders. She didn't care. For the first time in 26 years, she was breathing air that didn't belong to her father. She'd been in Barcelona for 3 weeks. 3 weeks of sleeping in a hostel that smelled like mildew and cigarettes. 3 weeks of broken Spanish and coffee that tasted like dirt. 3 weeks of looking over her shoulder every time a car slowed down or a man in a suit walked too close. But she was free. Or at least that's what she told herself. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She didn't need to check it to know what it said. Her father had been calling every day since she left. 14 missed calls yesterday. 19 the day before. She'd stopped counting the texts. The bakery owner, a woman in her 60s with flour-dusted hands and a warm smile, waved at her through the window. Ava waved back. She'd been coming here every morning for the past week, ordering the same thing, a cortado and a croissant. The woman didn't speak English. Ava didn't speak Catalan, but they'd developed a rhythm, a silent understanding. That was enough. Ava pulled her jacket tighter and stepped out into the rain. The Gothic Quarter was alive even in bad weather. Tourists huddled under umbrellas. Locals moved with practiced indifference, and street musicians played for coins that floated in open guitar cases. Ava kept her head down, weaving through the crowd with the kind of practiced anonymity she'd been perfecting since she arrived. She'd chosen Barcelona for a reason. It was far enough from New York that her father's reach felt thinner. Not gone. Never gone. But thinner. And it was big enough to disappear into. Big enough that a girl with no plan and a rapidly shrinking bank account could blend in, at least for a little while. She turned down a side street heading toward the language school where she'd enrolled under a fake name. The classes were cheap, the teachers didn't ask questions, and it gave her something to do besides sit in her hostel room and spiral. The street was narrow, flanked by buildings that leaned in like they were sharing secrets. Ava's footsteps echoed against the stone. She was halfway down when she heard them. Other footsteps. Behind her. She didn't turn around, didn't speed up, just kept walking, her heartbeat ticking faster with each step. You're paranoid. You're being ridiculous. But the footsteps matched her pace. She turned a corner. They turned too. Okay. Not paranoid. Ava's hand tightened around the strap of her bag. She scanned the street ahead. It was empty. No tourists, no locals. Just shuttered shops and the faint smell of garbage from an overflowing bin. Stupid. This was so stupid. She should have stayed on the main road. Should have... A hand grabbed her arm. Ava spun, her bag swinging out as a weapon, but the man caught it easily. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with a face that looked like it had been carved from something harder than stone. "Let go," she hissed, yanking her arm back. He didn't. "Ava Moretti?" Her blood went cold. "I don't know who that is." "Yeah, you do." He reached into his jacket, and Ava's body moved on instinct. She drove her knee up hard, aiming for his groin, but he twisted at the last second, and her knee hit his thigh instead. He grunted, his grip loosening just enough for her to rip free. She ran. Her sneakers slapped against wet stone as she bolted back the way she'd come, her breath coming in sharp gasps. Behind her, she heard him swearing, heard his footsteps pounding after her. Faster! Move faster! She rounded the corner and collided with someone. Hard. The impact sent her stumbling backward, and strong hands caught her before she hit the ground. "Whoa! Hey, easy!" The voice was calm, steady, American. Ava looked up. The man holding her was younger than the one chasing her. Early 30s, maybe. Dark hair, darker eyes, and a face that would have been handsome if she wasn't currently in the middle of a panic attack. "Someone's following me," she gasped, trying to pull away. "I need to—" "I know." She froze. "What?" His eyes flicked past her, and his expression shifted, not afraid, just calculating. The first man rounded the corner, slowing when he saw them. His hand was still inside his jacket. "Walk away," the stranger said. His voice hadn't changed, still calm, still steady, but there was something underneath it now, something sharp. The first man hesitated. "I said walk away." For a long moment, nobody moved. Then the first man's hand slid out of his jacket, empty, and he took a step back. "This isn't over," he said, his eyes locked on Ava. "Yeah, it is." The stranger's grip on Ava's arm tightened slightly, and she realized he'd positioned himself between her and the other man. Not obviously, just there. The first man glared at them for another beat, then turned and walked away. Ava didn't breathe until he disappeared around the corner. "You okay?" She yanked her arm free and took a step back, her heart still hammering. "Who the hell are you?" "Adrian?" "That's not an answer." "It's my name." "What do you want?" He looked at her for a long moment, and Ava felt something uncomfortable twist in her chest. He wasn't looking at her like the men her father surrounded himself with, not like she was a commodity or a problem to be solved. He was looking at her like she was a person. "Coffee," he said finally. "What?" "I want coffee. You look like you could use some too." Ava stared at him. "You just scared off some guy who was chasing me and now you want to get coffee?" "Yeah." "Why?" "Because you're shaking and I'm not an asshole." She glanced down at her hands. He was right. They were trembling. "I'm fine." "Sure you are." He turned and started walking back toward the main street, hands in his pockets like he hadn't just inserted himself into what was very clearly a dangerous situation. Ava stood there for a moment, torn between running in the opposite direction and the bizarre pull to follow him. Don't be stupid. You don't know this guy. He could be worse than the first one. But something in her gut, some instinct she'd learned to trust over the years, told her he wasn't. She followed. The cafe was small and tucked away on a side street that actually had other people on it. Adrian ordered in flawless Spanish while Ava hovered near the door, still ready to bolt. He carried 2 cups to a corner table and set one in front of her. "Cortado, right?" She blinked. "How did you—" "You had one in your hand when you ran into me. Figured it was your drink." Ava looked down at the cup. She'd dropped the first one when she collided with him, hadn't even noticed. She sat down slowly, her hands wrapping around the ceramic like it might anchor her to something solid. Adrian sat across from her and took a sip of his own coffee, waiting. "You didn't answer my question," Ava said finally. "What do you want?" "I told you, coffee." Nobody helps a stranger and then buys them coffee for no reason. "Maybe I'm not nobody." "That's not reassuring." He smiled. It was small, genuine. "Fair point." Ava studied him. He was dressed simply. Jeans, a dark jacket, nothing flashy. But there was something about the way he held himself, confident without being cocky, aware without being twitchy. "You're American," she said. "So are you." "I didn't say I wasn't." "You didn't have to. Your accent's New York. Manhattan, if I had to guess." Ava's jaw tightened. "And yours is everywhere." He shrugged. "I move around a lot." "Doing what?" "Consulting." "That's vague." "It's accurate." She took a sip of her coffee. It was good. Better than the dirt she'd been drinking at the hostel. "The guy who was following me," she said carefully. "Did you know him?" "No." "But you knew someone was following me." Adrian hesitated, just for a second. But it was enough. "I've been in this city long enough to spot trouble," he said. "You looked like trouble." "Gee, thanks." "It's not an insult. Trouble's not always a bad thing." Ava set her cup down. "I should go." "You should, but you won't." She froze halfway out of her seat. "Excuse me?" "You're not leaving because you don't know if he's still out there. And even if he's not, you don't know if there are others." Her stomach twisted. "You don't know anything about me. I know you're running from something. I know you're scared. And I know you're too stubborn to ask for help even when you need it." Ava's hands curled into fists. "You don't know me." "Then prove me wrong. Walk out that door." She wanted to. Every instinct screamed at her to get up, leave, and never look back. But her legs didn't move. Because he was right. She was scared. And she didn't know what to do next. Adrian leaned back in his chair, his expression softening. "Look," he said, "I'm not trying to freak you out. But whoever that guy was, he knew your name, which means someone's looking for you. And if you're smart, which I think you are, you're going to want to figure out who before they find you again. Ava's throat felt tight. And you're offering to help out of the goodness of your heart? No, I'm offering to help because I don't like seeing people get hurt. You don't even know me. Not yet. The way he said it made her chest tighten in a way she didn't understand. She sat back down. 1 cup of coffee, she said. Then I'm gone. Adrian smiled. Deal. They talked for an hour. Or rather, Adrian talked and Ava listened, trying to figure out if he was genuine or just very good at pretending. He told her he'd been in Barcelona for 6 months, said he was working on a project for a client, something vague and corporate that she didn't press him on. He talked about the city like he knew it intimately, rattling off hole-in-the-wall restaurants and hidden beaches like he'd spent years here instead of months. And he asked her questions, not invasive ones, not the kind that felt like interrogation, just normal things. What brought her to Barcelona, how she was liking it, where she was staying. Ava deflected most of them, but she let a few slip through. She told him she was taking a break, figuring things out, learning the language. She didn't tell him about her father, didn't tell him about the marriage she'd been running from, didn't tell him that every time her phone buzzed, she felt like she was one step closer to being dragged back to a life she never wanted. When the cafe started filling up with the lunch crowd, Adrian glanced at his watch. I should let you go, he said. Ava stood, slinging her bag over her shoulder. Thanks for the coffee and for earlier. Anytime. She turned to leave, but his voice stopped her. Ava. She looked back. Be careful, okay? Whoever's looking for you, they're not going to stop just because you ran into a good Samaritan. Her stomach twisted again, but she forced a nod. I will. She walked out into the afternoon sun, her mind spinning. Adrian was right. This wasn't over, and deep down, she knew it never would be. The next few days passed in a haze of paranoia and bad sleep. Ava stopped going to the language school, stopped going to the bakery. She moved hostels twice, paying in cash and using a different name each time. But no matter where she went, she felt eyes on her. Watching. Waiting. On the 4th day, her phone rang. Not her father this time. A number she didn't recognize. She almost didn't answer, but something made her press the green button. Hello? Ava Moretti? Her blood froze. Who is this? Someone who knows your father. Someone who knows what you're running from. Her hand tightened around the phone. What do you want? To offer you a choice. Come home willingly, or we'll come get you. I'm not going back. Then you're making this harder than it needs to be. The line went dead. Ava stood there, staring at her phone, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might crack a rib. They found you. They know where you are. She grabbed her bag and bolted. She didn't know where she was going, didn't have a plan. Just ran, her sneakers pounding against pavement, her breath coming in ragged gasps. She turned down a side street, then another, until the buildings blurred together and she didn't know where she was anymore. And then she saw him. Adrian. Standing outside a small cafe, a coffee in one hand and his phone in the other. He looked up as she approached, and his expression shifted immediately. Ava? She didn't stop, just grabbed his arm and pulled him into the nearest alley. Whoa! What's going on? They called me, she gasped. They know I'm here. They're coming for me. Adrian's jaw tightened. Who called you? I don't know. Someone who works for my father. Your father? Ava realized too late what she'd said. She tried to pull away, but Adrian caught her wrist. Ava, who's your father? She looked up at him, and for the first time since she'd arrived in Barcelona, she felt the weight of it all crash down on her. The running, the fear, the loneliness. Vincent Moretti, she whispered. Adrian's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. The Vincent Moretti? She nodded. He wants me to marry someone, a business arrangement. I ran before the wedding. Adrian was quiet for a long moment. Then he let go of her wrist and stepped back. You need to leave Barcelona. I know, but I don't have anywhere to go. Then I'll help you. Ava stared at him. Why? You don't owe me anything. Maybe not, but I'm offering anyway. She wanted to argue, wanted to tell him she didn't need his help, but the truth was, she did. Okay, she said quietly. Adrian nodded. Pack your things. Meet me back here in 2 hours. Where are we going? He looked at her, and for the first time she saw something unreadable in his expression. Somewhere safe. Ava packed everything she owned into a single duffel bag. It didn't take long. She'd left New York with almost nothing, and she hadn't accumulated much since. She met Adrian at the cafe exactly 2 hours later. He was waiting with a car, a sleek black sedan that looked out of place among the tourists and scooters. Get in, he said. She hesitated. Where are we going? North. There's a house in the mountains. No one will find you there. How do you know? Because it's mine. Ava climbed into the passenger seat, her bag clutched in her lap. Adrian started the engine and pulled into traffic, navigating the narrow streets with ease. They didn't talk for the first hour. Ava stared out the window, watching Barcelona disappear behind them, replaced by hills and vineyards and sprawling countryside. You didn't have to do this, she said finally. I know. So why are you? Adrian glanced at her. Because everyone deserves a chance to run. Something in his voice made her chest ache. You sound like you know what that's like. I do. He didn't elaborate, and Ava didn't push. The house was exactly where he said it would be. Tucked into the mountains, surrounded by trees and silence, it was small but well kept. The kind of place you'd go to disappear. Adrian unlocked the door and stepped inside, flipping on lights as he went. There's a bedroom upstairs, he said. Kitchen's stocked. You'll be safe here. Ava set her bag down and looked around. You're not staying? I have to get back to the city, but I'll check in. Why? He turned to face her, and for a moment they just stood there. Because I want to make sure you're okay. Ava's throat tightened. I don't even know you. Then get to know me. He left before she could respond. Man, the first week in the mountains was strange. Ava spent most of it alone, wandering the property and trying to quiet the noise in her head. Adrian came by every few days, bringing groceries and checking to make sure she hadn't been found. They fell into a rhythm. He'd show up in the afternoon, they'd sit on the porch and talk, and then he'd leave. But each time he came, he stayed a little longer. And each time he left, it got a little harder to watch him go. Tell me something real, Ava said one evening, her feet tucked under her on the porch swing. Adrian looked up from his coffee. What do you mean? I mean, you know everything about me, my father, why I'm running, but I don't know anything about you. He was quiet for a moment. What do you want to know? Why you help people? Why you're here? Why you care? Adrian set his cup down and leaned back in his chair. I told you I move around a lot, he said. That's true, but it's not the whole story. So tell me the whole story. He looked at her, and she saw something raw in his expression. I used to work for people like your father, he said quietly. People who thought they could control everything, everyone. I did things I'm not proud of, and when I finally got out, I promised myself I'd never let anyone else get trapped the way I was. Ava's chest tightened. Is that what you think I am? Trapped? Aren't you? She didn't answer. Because he was right. I'm trying not to be, she said finally. Adrian smiled. I know. That's why I'm helping. Cool. 2 weeks turned into a month, and somewhere in the quiet of the mountains, something shifted. Ava stopped seeing Adrian as a stranger. He became something else. Someone who listened when she talked. Someone who didn't try to fix her or control her or tell her what to do. Someone who just stayed. And God help her, she didn't want him to leave anymore. One night, after he'd brought dinner and they'd eaten on the porch under a sky full of stars, Ava finally asked the question she'd been avoiding. What happens when this is over? Adrian looked at her. What do you mean? I mean, I can't stay here forever. Eventually I'll have to figure out what's next. And when I do... She stopped. Adrian waited. When I do, you'll go back to your life and I'll go back to mine. He didn't say anything for a long moment. Then he reached across the table and took her hand. Maybe, he said quietly. Or maybe we figure out what's next together. Ava's breath caught. Adrian, I'm not asking you to make a decision. I'm just saying, I'm here. For as long as you want me to be. She looked down at their hands, her heart pounding. I don't know how to do this, she whispered. I don't know how to trust someone. Then don't, not yet, just let me stay. She looked up at him, and for the first time in months, She felt something other than fear. She felt hope. Okay, she said. He smiled. And in that moment, Ava Moretti realized she was in serious trouble because she was falling for him, and she had no idea how to stop. The next morning, Ava woke to the smell of coffee and something burning. She stumbled downstairs in one of Adrian's oversized shirts. He'd left a few things at the house over the weeks, and found him in the kitchen, glaring at a skillet like it had personally offended him. "What are you doing?" she asked, leaning against the doorway. He looked up, and something flickered across his face when he saw her. Something that made her suddenly very aware of how little she was wearing. "Attempting breakfast," he said. Keyword, attempting. Ava walked over and peered into the pan. The eggs were black around the edges, stuck to the metal in a way that suggested they'd become permanent residents. "When did you get here?" "About an hour ago." "Why?" He turned off the burner and tossed the skillet into the sink with more force than necessary. "Because I couldn't sleep." The honesty in his voice caught her off guard. "Adrian, I brought a pastries," he said quickly, nodding toward a bag on the counter. "Figured I'd try to be useful, but apparently I can't even manage eggs." Ava grabbed the bag and pulled out a croissant, tearing off a piece and popping it into her mouth. "You're plenty useful," she said. "Yeah?" "Yeah. You're here." He looked at her for a long moment, and Ava felt that pull again, the one that had been getting stronger every time he showed up. "I should go," he said finally. "You just got here." "I know, but—" "Stay." The word hung between them. Adrian's jaw tightened, and Ava watched something like conflict war across his face. "Ava, I don't think—" "I'm not asking you to do anything," she said quickly. "Just have coffee with me. That's all." He exhaled slowly, then nodded. "Okay." They sat on the porch like they always did, but this time felt different, heavier. Like the air between them had thickened into something neither of them wanted to name. "Tell me about New York," Adrian said after a while. "Before all this, what was your life like?" Ava stared into her cup. "Suffocating." "That's it?" "That's most of it." She paused. "My father, he's not a bad man. Not in the way people think. He doesn't hit, doesn't yell, but he controls everything. Where I go, who I see, what I wear. He'd decide what I ordered at restaurants before I could even look at the menu. That's not love." "I know, but he calls it protection." Adrian's hand tightened around his cup. "And the marriage?" Ava's stomach turned. "A merger. That's what he called it. He needed an alliance with the DeLuca family, and apparently the best way to do that was to hand me over like a signing bonus." "Did you ever meet him? The guy you were supposed to marry?" She shook her head. "My father said it didn't matter. That I'd learn to love him eventually, like love is something you can schedule into a calendar." Adrian was quiet for a moment. "What's his name? Does it matter?" "Maybe not, but I'm curious." Ava set her cup down, her fingers drumming against the armrest. "Adrian DeLuca." She didn't see his face change, didn't catch the way his shoulders went rigid or the way his breathing stuttered for just a second, because she was staring at the mountains, trying to push down the bitterness rising in her throat. "I'm sure he's terrible," she continued. "My father wouldn't pick someone decent. He'd pick someone useful, someone who'd fall in line and do what he's told." "You don't know that." "Don't I?" She looked at him. "You said you used to work for people like my father. What kind of man agrees to marry a woman he's never met?" Adrian's expression was unreadable. "Maybe one who doesn't have a choice." "Everyone has a choice?" "Do they?" The weight in his voice made her pause. "What does that mean?" He stood abruptly, walking to the edge of the porch and bracing his hands against the railing. "It means sometimes people get trapped in situations they can't control. And sometimes they do things they're not proud of because the alternative is worse." Ava watched him, her chest tightening. "Are we still talking about hypotheticals?" He didn't answer. She stood and walked over to him, close enough that she could see the tension in his jaw. "Adrian, what aren't you telling me?" He turned to face her, and for the first time since she'd met him, she saw something like fear in his eyes. "Nothing," he said. "I'm not telling you nothing." "You're lying." "Ava, what is it? Are you working for my father? Is that what this is?" "No." The word came out sharp, definitive. "I'm not working for your father." "Then what—" "I can't tell you." Her breath hitched. "Why not?" "Because if I do, you'll hate me." The rawness in his voice stopped her cold. They stood there, inches apart, the silence stretching between them like a wire pulled too tight. "I could never hate you," Ava said quietly. Adrian's eyes searched hers. "You don't know that." "Yes, I do." He reached up slowly, his hand hovering near her face like he was afraid to touch her. And then finally, his fingers brushed her cheek. "You're making this so much harder than it needs to be," he whispered. "Making what harder?" But before he could answer, his phone rang. He pulled back immediately, the moment shattering like glass. He glanced at the screen, and his expression shifted. "I have to take this." "Adrian," but he was already walking away, the phone pressed to his ear. Ava watched him disappear into the house, her heart pounding. Something was wrong. She just didn't know what. Months. Adrian didn't come back for 3 days. Ava told herself she didn't care, told herself it didn't matter. But every time she heard a car on the road, her heart jumped. On the 4th day, her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "We know where you are." Her blood went cold. She grabbed her bag and was halfway out the door when another text came through. "Don't run. We're not here to hurt you. We're here to bring you home. Home." Like it was a place she wanted to be. Ava's hand shook as she typed back. "I'm not coming back." The response was immediate. "You don't have a choice. Your father's given you long enough. The wedding is in 2 weeks. You can come willingly, or we'll make you. Your call." She stared at the screen, her vision blurring. 2 weeks. She had 2 weeks before they dragged her back to New York and chained her to a man she'd never met. Her phone rang. Adrian's name flashed on the screen. She answered. "Where are you?" she demanded. "On my way. Don't leave the house." "Someone texted me. They know where I am." There was a pause. "What did they say?" "That I have 2 weeks, that the wedding's happening whether I like it or not." Adrian swore under his breath. "Stay put. I'll be there in 20 minutes. "Adrian, what's going on?" But he'd already hung up. Ava paced the living room, her mind racing. 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks. She couldn't go back. She wouldn't. But what choice did she have? Her father had money, power, connections. She had a duffel bag and a borrowed house in the mountains. When Adrian's car pulled up, she was already outside. He climbed out, his face drawn and tight. "We need to talk." "No kidding." He gestured to the house, and she followed him inside. They sat in the living room, the air between them crackling with tension. "How did they find me?" Ava asked. Adrian ran a hand through his hair. "I don't know, but if they know where you are, it means someone's been watching." "Someone like who?" He didn't answer. "Adrian." "I don't know, Ava." "You're lying again." His jaw clenched. "What do you want me to say?" "The truth." She stood, her hands curling into fists. "You've been dodging my questions for weeks. You disappear for days without explanation, and now someone's found me and you're acting like you know exactly why." "I don't... Stop lying to me." The words echoed through the room. Adrian stood slowly, his expression hard. "You want the truth? Fine. The truth is your father's reach is a hell of a lot longer than you think. The truth is he's not going to stop until he gets you back. And the truth is there's nothing I can do to change that." Ava's chest tightened. "Then why are you here?" "Because I'm trying to buy you time." "Time for what?" "To figure out what you want. To decide if you're going to fight or if you're going to give up." "I'm not giving up." "Then prove it." She stared at him, her breath coming in short bursts. "What do you want from me?" Adrian crossed the room in 3 strides and stopped inches from her. "I want you to stop running," he said quietly. "I want you to stand your ground and fight back. Because the woman I've gotten to know over the past month, she's not someone who rolls over and accepts her fate." Ava's throat felt tight. "You don't know me as well as you think." "I know you better than you know yourself." "That's not... You're brave, Ava. Braver than you give yourself credit for. You ran when most people would have stayed. You survived when most people would have crumbled. And you're still standing even though your entire world is trying to drag you back into a cage." Her eyes burned. "I don't feel brave." "You don't have to feel it to be it." She looked up at him, and the distance between them felt impossibly small. "What if I can't do this?" she whispered. "Then I'll be here to catch you when you fall." Her breath hitched. "Why?" Adrian's hand came up to cup her face, and this time he didn't hesitate. "Because somewhere along the way, I started caring about you," he he said, "and I don't know how to stop." Ava's heart slammed against her ribs. "Adrian, you don't have to say anything. I just needed you to know." But she did have something to say. She rose on her toes and kissed him. It wasn't soft, wasn't tentative. It was desperate and messy and real. Adrian's arms came around her immediately, pulling her closer, and Ava felt something inside her chest crack wide open. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Adrian rested his forehead against hers. "We can't do this," he whispered. "I know. It's going to make everything worse." "I know. But I don't want to stop." "Neither do I." He kissed her again, slower this time, and Ava let herself fall into it. Let herself forget just for a moment that her world was collapsing around her, because for the first time in her life, she felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. They didn't talk about what happened. Not that night, not the next morning. They just existed in the space they'd created, pretending the outside world didn't exist. But on the third day, Adrian's phone rang. He answered it in the other room, but Ava could hear the tension in his voice. When he came back, his face was pale. "What is it?" she asked. "That was one of my contacts. Your father's moving up the timeline." Ava's stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" "The wedding. It's not in 2 weeks anymore. It's in 5 days." 5? She couldn't breathe. "Why?" "Because he knows you're planning something. He's trying to force your hand before you can make a move." Ava sank onto the couch, her head in her hands. "I can't do this. I can't marry him." Adrian knelt in front of her, his hands on her knees. "Then don't. You make it sound so simple." "It is simple. You say no." "And then what? My father drags me back anyway? Locks me in a room until I agree?" "Then we leave. Tonight. We disappear. Go somewhere he can't find you." Ava looked at him. "And you'd come with me?" "If you want me to." "Adrian, you can't just upend your entire life for me." "Why not? You did it for yourself." She didn't have an answer for that. He stood and held out his hand. "Pack your things. We leave in an hour." "Where are we going?" "Does it matter?" Ava looked at his hand, then at his face, and for the first time she realized she trusted him completely. She took his hand. "No," she said. "It doesn't." They left under the cover of darkness. Adrian drove while Ava sat in the passenger seat, watching the mountains disappear behind them. "Where are we going?" she asked after an hour of silence. "South. There's a town near the coast, small, quiet. No one will think to look there." "And after that?" "We figure it out." Ava leaned her head against the window, exhaustion pulling at her. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" "For not giving up on me." Adrian's hand found hers across the console. "I'm not going anywhere, Ava, not unless you tell me to." She closed her eyes, her fingers tightening around his. "Don't go." "I won't." But even as he said it, Ava felt a flicker of unease. Because deep down, she knew this couldn't last. Her father would find her eventually, and when he did, everything would fall apart. The coastal town was exactly what Adrian had promised. Small, quiet. The kind of place where tourists came for a weekend and locals spent their entire lives. They rented a small apartment above a bakery, and for a few days, Ava let herself believe they could actually pull this off. She and Adrian fell into a routine. Morning coffee on the tiny balcony, afternoons exploring the town, evenings tangled together in a bed that was too small for 2 people but somehow felt just right. And for the first time since she'd left New York, Ava felt like she could breathe. But on the 4th night, everything changed. She woke to the sound of voices downstairs, loud, angry. Ava sat up, her heart pounding. Adrian was already awake, pulling on his jeans. "Stay here," he said. "What's going on?" "I don't know, just stay here." But Ava didn't listen. She followed him downstairs, staying in the shadows as he approached the door. He opened it, and Ava's blood turned to ice. Standing on the other side were 2 men in suits, and behind them, leaning against a black SUV, was her father. Vincent Moretti looked exactly the way she remembered. Silver hair, cold eyes, a smile that didn't reach anywhere near warmth. "Hello, sweetheart," he said. Ava's legs felt like water. "No. It's time to come home." "I'm not going anywhere with you." Vincent's gaze flicked to Adrian, and something dark crossed his face. "Step aside, son. This doesn't concern you." Adrian didn't move. She said she's not going, and I say she is. Then you've got a problem. One of the suited men stepped forward, but Vincent raised a hand. Not yet. He looked at Ava. We can do this the easy way or the hard way. Your choice. Ava's hands curled into fists. You can't make me. Can't I? Vincent smiled. You've been running for 6 weeks, Ava. Hiding in cheap hostels and borrowed houses. Do you really think I didn't know where you were the entire time? Her stomach dropped. What? I've known since the day you left New York. I let you run because I thought you'd come to your senses, but you didn't. So now we're done playing games. Adrian stepped between them. She's not going anywhere. Vincent's eyes narrowed. And who are you exactly? Someone who's not going to let you take her. Vincent laughed. It was a cold, hollow sound. You think you can stop me? I think I can try. Then you're a fool. Vincent nodded to the suited men, and they moved forward. Adrian's fist connected with the first one's jaw before Ava could even process what was happening. The second man lunged, and Adrian twisted, slamming him against the doorframe. But then a third man appeared, one Ava hadn't seen, and he grabbed Adrian from behind, wrenching his arms back. No! Ava screamed. She ran forward, but Vincent caught her, his grip iron around her wrist. Enough! Let me go! You're coming home, Ava. Tonight. I'd rather die. Vincent's expression hardened. Don't be dramatic. He dragged her toward the SUV, and Ava thrashed, trying to break free. Adrian! But Adrian was pinned, his face twisted in rage. Let her go, Vincent. Vincent paused, turned. I'm sorry, do I know you? Adrian's jaw clenched, and then he said the words that made Ava's entire world stop. You should. I'm the man she was supposed to marry. Silence. Ava's breath caught. What? Vincent's grip on her wrist loosened just slightly, and Adrian looked at her, his expression shattered. My name is Adrian DeLuca, he said quietly, and I've been lying to you since the day we met. Ava felt the ground tilt beneath her feet. The words echoed in her head, bouncing around like they were trying to find a place to land but couldn't. Adrian DeLuca, the man she was supposed to marry. She pulled her wrist free from her father's grip and stumbled backward. No. Adrian's face was a mess of pain and something that looked like desperation. Ava, don't. Her voice cracked. Don't say my name. Vincent looked between them, his expression shifting from confusion to something darker. Understanding. Well, he said slowly, this is interesting. Adrian finally wrenched free from the man holding him, shoving him away hard enough that he hit the wall, but he didn't move toward Ava, just stood there, his chest heaving. How long? Ava asked. Her voice sounded hollow, like it was coming from somewhere far away. Ava, please, how long have you known who I was? Adrian's jaw worked. Since the beginning. The air left her lungs. The man in Barcelona, the one who grabbed me. You knew he was coming. No, I didn't know about him specifically, but I knew your father's people were looking. Because you were one of them. No, I was never. You're a liar. The words tasted like acid. Everything you said, everything we... She couldn't finish. Vincent stepped forward, his hand reaching for her arm again. Enough of this. We're leaving. But Ava jerked away from him too. Don't touch me. Ava, I said don't touch me. She was shouting now, her voice raw. Either of you, don't you dare touch me. Vincent's expression hardened. You're being irrational. Irrational. You tried to sell me off like property, and when I ran, you sent him... She jabbed a finger at Adrian. To what? Track me down? Trick me into trusting you so you could drag me back? It wasn't like that, Adrian said quietly. Then what was it like? He took a step toward her, and she took 2 back. Stop. Just stop. Let me explain. There's nothing to explain. You lied. About everything. About who you were, why you were there, what you wanted. Not everything. Really? Name one thing that was real. Adrian's eyes locked on hers. The way I feel about you. Ava laughed. It was a bitter, broken sound. You don't get to say that. Not now. It's true. I don't care if it's true. You lied to me for weeks. You made me believe... Her voice caught. You made me believe I could trust you. You can. How? She spread her arms wide. How am I supposed to trust anything you say when your entire existence has been a lie? Vincent cleared his throat. As touching as this is, we have a schedule to keep. Ava, you're coming home. Adrian, you'll follow in the morning. The wedding is in 2 days and we're not postponing again. Ava turned to her father, and for the first time in her life, she looked at him with something close to hatred. I'm not marrying him. Yes, you are. You can't make me. I can, and I will. Then you'll have to drag me down the aisle unconscious because I will never say yes. Vincent's expression didn't change, if that's what it takes. The casual cruelty of it hit her like a slap. Adrian moved before anyone could react. He grabbed Vincent by the collar and slammed him against the SUV. You're not taking her. The suited men lunged forward, but Vincent raised a hand, stopping them. He looked at Adrian with something like amusement. Careful, son. You're about to become family. Let's not start off on the wrong foot. There's not going to be a wedding. Oh, there will be, because if there isn't, your family loses everything. Or did you forget the terms of our agreement? Adrian's grip tightened, but Ava saw the flicker of something in his eyes. Conflict. What agreement? She asked. Vincent smiled. Didn't he tell you? The marriage isn't just about you, sweetheart. It's about saving his family from bankruptcy. The DeLucas are drowning in debt, have been for years. This union clears their ledger and gives me access to their European connections. Everyone wins. Ava's gaze snapped to Adrian. Is that true? He didn't answer. Adrian, is it true? Yes. The word came out strangled. But that's not why Let me guess. That's not why you came after me? Not why you pretended to care? I wasn't pretending. You were saving your family. At first, yes. But then what? You decided I was worth more than a business deal? How generous. Adrian released Vincent and turned to her. It's not like that. Then tell me what it's like. Because from where I'm standing, you used me. You made me fall for you so you could cash in on your father's arranged marriage and save your own skin. I didn't make you do anything. You lied because I didn't have a choice. The rawness in his voice stopped her. What? Adrian's hands curled into fists at his sides. You think I wanted this? You think I wanted to track down a woman I'd never met and convince her to marry me? My father gave me an ultimatum. Go to Barcelona, find you, bring you back, or watch everything my family built for 3 generations burn to the ground. So you chose your family over me. I chose to buy time. He was shouting now too. I thought if I found you first, if I could get you to trust me, maybe I could figure out a way to fix this without anyone getting hurt. Clearly that worked out great. I tried, Ava. I tried to find another way. But your father wasn't budging, and my father... He stopped, his jaw clenching. My father was dying. The words hung in the air. Ava's anger stuttered. What? Adrian looked away. Cancer. Stage 4. The stress of losing everything was killing him faster than the disease. The doctors gave him 6 months. That was 5 months ago. Ava's throat tightened, but she forced herself not to soften. That doesn't excuse what you did. I know. You still lied to me. I know. You made me believe... Her voice broke. You made me believe someone actually wanted me. Not my father's money or his connections, just me. Adrian stepped closer, and this time she didn't move away. I do want you, he said quietly. Not because of the deal, not because of my family, because somewhere in the middle of all this, I fell in love with you. Ava's breath caught. Don't. It's true. It doesn't matter. It's the only thing that matters. No. She shook her head, tears burning her eyes. What matters is that you lied. What matters is that I trusted you, and you used that against me. What matters is that everything I felt for you was based on a lie. Not everything. Enough. Vincent clapped his hands together, the sound sharp in the night air. Well, this has been delightful, but we really do need to go. Ava, in the car, now. Ava looked at her father, then at Adrian, and she realized something. She was done running. No, she said. Vincent's expression darkened. Excuse me? I said no, I'm not going with you. Ava, you want to drag me back to New York? Fine. But I'm not going to make it easy. I'll scream. I'll fight. I'll make sure everyone in this town knows exactly what kind of man you are. No one will believe you. Maybe not. But I'll make enough noise that it won't matter. Vincent's hand shot out and grabbed her arm, his grip bruising. You're testing my patience. Good, because you've been testing mine my entire life. He yanked her toward the SUV, and Ava dug her heels in, twisting against his hold. Adrian moved like lightning. He grabbed Vincent's wrist and twisted hard enough that Vincent let go with a curse. I told you not to touch her. Vincent's expression went cold. You're making a very big mistake. Probably. But I'm done watching people get hurt because of deals made by men who don't care about anything but power. Noble. Stupid, but noble. Vincent nodded to his men. Take them both. The suited men moved forward, and Adrian pushed Ava behind him. Run. What? Run, Ava, now! I'm not leaving you. Yes, you are. Go. But before she could move, one of the men grabbed her, lifting her off her feet. She screamed, kicking and thrashing, but his grip was iron. Adrian lunged, but the other two men tackled him, slamming him to the ground. Adrian! Vincent walked over to where Adrian was pinned and crouched down. You had potential, son. Shame you wasted it on sentiment. Adrian spat blood onto the pavement. Go to hell. Vincent stood and brushed off his pants. Put him in the car. We'll deal with him later. No, Ava screamed. Let him go. But Vincent didn't even look at her. They shoved Adrian into the back of the SUV, his hands zip-tied behind his back. Ava was pushed in after him and the door slammed shut. The driver started the engine and the vehicle pulled away from the curb. Ava twisted to look at Adrian. His face was bruised, blood trickling from a cut above his eyebrow. Are you okay? She asked, her voice shaking. I'm fine. You're bleeding. I've had worse. She looked away, her hands trembling in her lap. This is my fault. No, it's not. If I hadn't run, then you'd be married to a stranger right now. At least this way you fought. Ava's throat tightened. I don't know what to do. Adrian shifted, leaning his head back against the seat. You do what you've always done. You survive. I don't want to just survive anymore. Then fight. She looked at him. How? I don't know yet, but we'll figure it out. We? He met her eyes. If you'll let me? Ava wanted to say no, wanted to tell him she never wanted to see him again. But the truth was, even knowing what he'd done, she didn't want to face this alone. Okay, she whispered. Adrian's expression softened. Okay. They drove in silence for the next hour, the landscape blurring into darkness outside the windows. Ava's mind raced, cycling through plans and discarding them just as quickly. She couldn't run. Not anymore. Her father had proven he'd always find her. She couldn't fight. Not physically. He had too many people, too much power. But maybe she didn't need to fight him directly. Maybe she just needed to make him irrelevant. Adrian, she said quietly. Yeah? What would happen if we actually went through with the wedding? He looked at her like she'd lost her mind. What? Hear me out. What if we got married? Not because our fathers want us to, but because we choose to. Ava, you just said you'd never marry me. I know what I said, but think about it. If we're married, the deal is complete. Your family's debt is cleared. My father gets his alliance. Everyone gets what they want. Except you. Maybe. Or maybe I get something too. Like what? Ava leaned forward, her voice low. Freedom. Real freedom. Because once we're married, the contract is fulfilled. And if we're married, my father can't control me anymore. I'm legally tied to you, not him. Adrian's brow furrowed. You're talking about using the marriage as a shield. I'm talking about beating him at his own game. And then what? We stay married? Pretend to be happy while we hate each other? I don't hate you. The words slipped out before she could stop them. Adrian stared at her. You should. Probably, but I don't. He was quiet for a long moment. Even if we did this, it wouldn't work. Your father's not an idiot. He'd see through it. Not if we sell it. Not if we make him believe we actually want this. Ava, I'm serious. Think about it. We play along. We smile at the wedding. We act like the perfect couple. And once it's done, once the deal is sealed and my father's focus shifts to his new business ventures, we disappear. Together. We take whatever leverage we have and we vanish. Adrian looked at her like he was trying to figure out if she was serious. You're talking about conning your father. I'm talking about surviving. By lying to everyone. You seemed pretty comfortable with lying a few weeks ago. The words came out sharper than she intended, and Adrian flinched. That's fair. Ava exhaled slowly. I'm sorry, that was true. It was true. He shifted, his bound hands flexing behind him. But this is different. You're talking about committing fraud, lying to lawyers, witnesses, probably a judge. If your father finds out, then we make sure he doesn't. And if he does? Ava met his eyes. Then we're already screwed anyway. At least this way we go down fighting. Adrian studied her for a long moment. You've changed. Yeah, well, running for your life tends to do that. I mean it. The woman I met in Barcelona, she was scared, angry. But this? He shook his head. This is something else. Is that a compliment? I don't know yet. The SUV slowed and Ava glanced out the window. They were pulling into a private airstrip, a small jet waiting on the tarmac. Her stomach dropped. We're flying back to New York. Adrian nodded. Looks like it. Ava's hands curled into fists. Then we don't have much time. For what? To decide if we're doing this. Together. Adrian looked at her and she saw the conflict warring in his eyes. If we do this, he said slowly, and it goes wrong, you could lose everything. I've already lost everything. This way, at least I have a shot at getting some of it back. What if I screw it up? Then I'll kill you myself. He laughed. It was a short, surprised sound. Fair enough. The car stopped and the door opened. Vincent stood there, looking between them with an expression that was almost bored. Out, both of you. Ava climbed out first, her legs shaky. Adrian followed, his hands still bound. Vincent gestured to one of his men. Cut him loose. He's no use to me injured. The man pulled a knife and sliced through the zip ties. Adrian rubbed his wrists, flexing his fingers. Ava, Vincent said, you'll sit with me. Adrian, you're in the back. No, Ava said. Vincent raised an eyebrow. Excuse me? I said no. If you want me to cooperate, I sit with Adrian. If you want to keep dragging me around like a prisoner, fine. But don't expect me to make this easy. Vincent's jaw tightened. You're in no position to make demands. Neither are you. You need this wedding to happen, which means you need me to say yes. And I'm telling you right now, if you separate us, I'll walk down that aisle and say no in front of everyone. Vincent stared at her. You're bluffing. Try me. For a long moment, they stood in a silent standoff. Then Vincent waved a hand. Fine, sit together. But if you try anything, we won't, Adrian said. Vincent's gaze shifted to him. See that you don't. They boarded the plane and Ava and Adrian took seats near the back. Vincent sat up front with his men, far enough away that they could talk quietly without being overheard. Ava leaned closer to Adrian, her voice barely above a whisper. Are we really doing this? Adrian looked at her. Are you sure? No, but I'm out of better options. He was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded. Okay, we do it, but we do it right. No mistakes. Agreed. And Ava? Yeah? If this works, and we actually pull this off, what happens after? Ava looked out the window at the darkness rushing past. I don't know, she said honestly, but I guess we'll figure it out. Adrian's hand found hers under the armrest, his fingers curling around hers. Together? She squeezed his hand. Together. The plane lifted off and Ava closed her eyes. She didn't know if this was the bravest thing she'd ever done or the stupidest. But for the first time since she'd left New York, she felt like she had a plan. And if it meant playing the role her father had written for her, just long enough to rewrite the ending, then that's exactly what she'd do. When they landed in New York 6 hours later, the sun was just beginning to rise. Vincent's car was waiting, sleek and black, and so familiar it made Ava's chest ache. She hadn't realized how much she'd missed the city until she saw the skyline. And then she realized she hadn't missed it at all. She'd just missed the idea of home. They drove through Manhattan in silence, the streets still mostly empty at this hour. When they pulled up to her father's estate, a sprawling townhouse on the Upper East Side, Ava's stomach twisted. Vincent climbed out first, then turned to offer her his hand. She ignored it and got out on her own. Adrian followed, his expression unreadable. Inside, the house looked exactly the same. Polished marble floors, expensive art on the walls, everything pristine and cold. Vincent gestured to the stairs. Ava, your room is ready. Adrian, you'll stay in the guest wing. The wedding is tomorrow at 4. I suggest you both get some rest. Tomorrow? Ava's voice came out strangled. You said 2 days. I lied. Seemed fitting, given the circumstances. Adrian's jaw clenched, but he didn't argue. Vincent looked between them. I trust there won't be any more theatrics? Ava forced herself to smile. No, no more theatrics. Good. Because if either of you tries to run, I will make sure the consequences are severe. Do I make myself clear? Crystal, Adrian said. Vincent nodded and walked away, leaving them standing in the foyer. Ava waited until he was gone, then turned to Adrian. Tomorrow. I know. That's not enough time. It'll have to be. She looked up at him, and for a moment, all the anger and hurt and confusion melted away. I'm scared, she admitted. Adrian's hand came up to cup her face. Me too. What if this doesn't work? Then we'll deal with it. But right now we focus on getting through tomorrow. Everything else comes after. Ava nodded, even though her heart was racing. Okay. Get some sleep. You're going to need it. She wanted to argue, wanted to tell him she couldn't possibly sleep, but exhaustion was pulling at her, and she knew he was right. Adrian? Yeah? Thank you for not giving up. His thumb brushed her cheek. I told you, I'm not going anywhere. She leaned into his touch for just a moment, then pulled away and headed upstairs. Her room was exactly as she'd left it. The bed made, the curtains drawn, everything in its place. Ava closed the door and leaned against it, her breath shaking. Tomorrow, she'd walk down the aisle. Tomorrow, she'd marry a man she barely knew. Tomorrow, she'd bet everything on a plan that could blow up in her face. But tonight, she let herself fall apart. Ava didn't sleep. She lay in her childhood bed, staring at the ceiling, watching shadows shift as cars passed outside. The room smelled like lavender and old memories, and every time she closed her eyes, she saw Adrian's face when he'd said his real name, Adrian DeLuca. The man she'd been running from, the man she'd fallen for, the same person. At 3 a.m, she gave up and went to the window. The city stretched out below her, lit up like it was trying to prove something. She'd grown up in this house, in this room, looking at this exact view, but she'd never felt further from home. A soft knock at her door made her turn. Come in. Adrian slipped inside, closing the door quietly behind him. Couldn't sleep either, he asked. Not even close. He crossed to the window and stood beside her, close enough that she could feel the warmth coming off him. I used to sneak out this window when I was 16, Ava said. Climb down the trellis and meet my friends at this diner in the village. Did you get caught? Every time. My father always knew, but he never stopped me. She paused. I think he liked knowing I'd come back on my own. Control disguised as freedom. Exactly. They stood in silence for a moment. Are you having second thoughts? Adrian asked. About tomorrow? Yes, about 100 of them. We don't have to do this. We could run, right now, out that window you used to climb through. Ava looked at him. And go where? He found me in Barcelona. He'll find us anywhere. Not if we're smart about it. Adrian, your father is dying. You said it yourself. If we run, your family loses everything. His jaw tightened. My family made their own choices. You didn't ask for any of this. Neither did you. That's different. How? Adrian turned to face her fully. Because I'm the one who lied. I'm the one who made you believe something that wasn't real. Wasn't it? The question hung between them. What we had in the mountains, Adrian said carefully. That was real. Everything I feel, that's real. But the circumstances? The reason I was there in the first place? That was all a lie. Ava's throat felt tight. I keep trying to separate the two. The Adrian I knew and the Adrian you actually are. But I can't, because they're the same person. I'm sorry. I know, but sorry doesn't change what happened. No, it doesn't. She looked back out the window. When I was a kid, I used to dream about running away. I'd pack a bag and plan these elaborate escapes. Different cities, different countries. I had it all worked out. She laughed softly. But I never actually left, because deep down I was too scared. You're not scared anymore. I'm terrified. I'm just better at hiding it now. Adrian's hand found hers on the windowsill. For what it's worth, I think you're the bravest person I've ever met. That's a low bar. Maybe. But it's true. Ava looked down at their joined hands. If we do this tomorrow, if we actually go through with it, I need you to promise me something. Anything. No more lies. Ever. I don't care how bad the truth is. I need to know I can trust you. Adrian's fingers tightened around hers. I promise. I mean it, Adrian. One more lie, and we're done. I don't care if we're legally married or not. I understand. She searched his face, looking for any sign of deception, but all she saw was exhaustion and something that looked like regret. Okay, she said quietly. Okay? Okay. I believe you. Adrian exhaled slowly, and some of the tension left his shoulders. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. We still have to survive tomorrow. One step at a time. He started to pull away, but Ava held on. Stay. Adrian froze. Ava, not like that. Just stay. I don't want to be alone right now. He hesitated, then nodded. They moved to the bed, sitting with their backs against the headboard. Adrian's arm came around her shoulders, and Ava let herself lean into him. Tell me about your father, she said. The real story. Not the version you gave me in Spain. Adrian was quiet for a moment. He's a good man who made bad decisions. That's the short version. I want the long version. Adrian shifted slightly. He built the family business from nothing. Import-export, mostly legitimate. But when the economy crashed in 2008, he started taking shortcuts. Deals with people he shouldn't have trusted. Loans from organizations that don't exactly operate above board. The mob? Close enough. By the time he realized how deep he was, it was too late. They owned him. And when they called in the debt, he didn't have the money. So he made a deal with my father instead. Vincent offered to clear everything, all of it, in exchange for the marriage and access to our European contacts. My father saw it as a way out. And you? Adrian's laugh was bitter. I saw it as another cage, just a different set of bars. Ava understood that better than she wanted to. Do you resent him? Your father? Sometimes. But mostly I just feel sorry for him. He's dying, and instead of spending his last months with his family, he's watching everything he built fall apart. That's not your fault, isn't it? If I'd been smarter, stronger, maybe I could have found another way. Or maybe there wasn't another way. Maybe we're both just victims of our father's choices. Adrian looked down at her. Is that what you think we are? Victims? I don't know what we are, but I know I'm tired of letting other people decide. Then let's stop letting them. Ava closed her eyes. That's what tomorrow is supposed to be, taking control. You think it'll work? I think it has to. They fell into silence, and somewhere between one breath and the next, Ava drifted off. When she woke, the room was filled with gray morning light, and Adrian was gone. A note sat on the pillow beside her. Had to go before your father's people started asking questions. See you at the altar. Ava crumpled the note in her fist and got out of bed. The house was already buzzing with activity. She could hear voices downstairs, people moving with the kind of efficient purpose that came with expensive weddings and inflexible timelines. Her door opened without warning, and 3 women in black dresses walked in carrying garment bags and makeup cases. Miss Moretti, the first one said, we're here to get you ready. Ava wanted to tell them to leave, wanted to scream that she didn't want their help, didn't want this wedding, didn't want any of it. But that wasn't the plan. The plan required her to play along. So she smiled and said, let's get started. The next 4 hours were a blur of hair and makeup and a dress that cost more than most people's cars. The women worked in practiced silence, transforming her into something that looked like a bride but felt like a costume. When they finally let her look in the mirror, Ava barely recognized herself. The dress was beautiful. She had to give her father that much. White silk that fell in soft waves, a neckline that was elegant without being revealing, sleeves that ended just above her elbows. Her hair was pulled back in a simple twist, a few loose strands framing her face. She looked perfect. She felt like she was suffocating. A knock at the door made her turn. Vincent walked in, dressed in an expensive suit and looking pleased with himself. You look beautiful, sweetheart. Ava didn't respond. He crossed to her, adjusting one of the loose strands of hair that the stylist had carefully placed. I know you're angry with me, he said, but one day you'll understand. This is for your own good. Is it? Yes. Adrian is a good match. His family has connections you'll need, resources, protection. I don't need protection. I need freedom. Vincent's expression hardened. Freedom is an illusion, Ava. The sooner you accept that, the happier you'll be. You really believe that? I do. Because I've lived long enough to know that the world doesn't care what you want. It only cares what you can leverage. Ava looked at her father, really looked at him, and saw a man who'd spent so long playing the game that he'd forgotten there was anything outside of it. I feel sorry for you, she said quietly. Vincent's jaw tightened. Save your pity. You're going to need it for yourself if you keep fighting this. He offered her his arm. Come, it's time. Ava took his arm because she had to, because the plan required her to walk down that aisle and say the words. But as they descended the stairs and she saw the crowd of people waiting in the ballroom, her resolve wavered. There had to be 200 guests. Business associates, family friends, politicians, people who'd come to witness a transaction disguised as a union. And at the end of the aisle, standing beside an officiant who looked like he'd done this 1,000 times, was Adrian. He was wearing a dark suit that fit him perfectly, his hair combed back, his expression unreadable. But when his eyes found hers, something shifted. Recognition, understanding, maybe even fear. The music started. Vincent walked her down the aisle slowly, nodding to guests as they passed. Ava kept her eyes on Adrian, using him as an anchor to keep from bolting. When they reached the front, Vincent placed her hand in Adrian's. Take care of her, he said. Adrian's grip tightened around her fingers. I will. Vincent stepped back, and the officiant began. Ava barely heard the words, something about love and commitment and forever. Standard wedding script that felt absurd given the circumstances. When it came time for the vows, Adrian went first. I, Adrian DeLuca, take you, Ava Moretti, to be my wife. I promise to honor you, to protect you, and to stand by you, for better or worse, for as long as we both shall live. His voice was steady, but Ava saw the tension in his jaw. Then it was her turn. She opened her mouth to repeat the words, but something made her pause. This was it, the moment where she either committed to the plan or burned it all down. Adrian's eyes met hers, and she saw the question there. Are you sure? Ava thought about her father, about the life he'd built for her without asking, about the cage she'd been running from her entire life. And then she thought about Adrian, about the mountains and the coffee and the way he'd looked at her like she mattered. She took a breath. I, Ava Moretti, take you, Adrian DeLuca, to be my husband. I promise to honor you, to challenge you, and to stand by you, for better or worse, for as long as we both choose. The last part wasn't in the script. She saw the officiant's eyes widen slightly, saw her father shift in his seat, but Adrian smiled. It was small, almost imperceptible, but it was there. The officiant cleared his throat and continued. By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride. Adrian stepped closer, his hands coming up to frame her face. Last chance to run, he whispered. Too late now, Ava whispered back. He kissed her, and the room erupted in polite applause. But Ava barely heard it, because in that moment, standing in front of 200 strangers and bound to a man she barely knew, she realized something. She wasn't trapped, not anymore, because she'd just turned her father's weapon into her shield. The reception was held in the same ballroom, tables arranged around a dance floor that gleamed under crystal chandeliers. Ava and Adrian sat at the head table, smiling and nodding as people came to offer congratulations. Vincent gave a speech about legacy and family and the importance of strategic alliances. He didn't mention love once. Adrian's father, a thin man with hollow eyes who looked like he was barely holding on, gave a shorter speech about gratitude and new beginnings. And through it all, Ava played her part. She smiled. She laughed at appropriate moments. She let Adrian's hand rest on hers. But underneath the table, her other hand was clenched into a fist. When the speeches ended and the dancing began, Adrian stood and offered her his hand. Ready? No? Me neither. They walked to the center of the floor, and the music started. Something slow and classical that Ava didn't recognize. Adrian pulled her close, one hand on her waist, the other holding hers. You changed the vows, he said quietly. I know. Why? Because I needed to remind myself that this is temporary, that we're choosing this. Are we? Ava looked up at him. Aren't we? Adrian was quiet for a moment. I don't know anymore. Before Ava could respond, someone tapped Adrian's shoulder. Vincent. May I cut in? Adrian's jaw tightened, but he nodded and stepped back. Vincent took his place, and Ava forced herself not to flinch when his hand settled on her waist. You did well today, he said as they moved across the floor. Did I? You didn't run. You didn't make a scene. That's more than I expected. Maybe I'm finally learning to play the game, Vincent smiled. Good, because the game is all there is. Is that what you tell yourself? It's what I know to be true. Ava looked past him, her eyes finding Adrian standing at the edge of the dance floor. What if you're wrong? I'm not. How do you know? Vincent's grip tightened slightly. Because I've been playing longer than you've been alive, and I've never lost. There's a first time for everything. His expression darkened. Careful, Ava. You're married now, but that doesn't mean you're untouchable. Adrian may be your husband, but he's still in debt to me. And debt means leverage. Ava's stomach twisted. What are you saying? I'm saying that if you try to run again, there will be consequences. Not just for you, for him too. The song ended and Vincent stepped back. Enjoy your reception, sweetheart. You've earned it. He walked away, leaving Ava standing in the middle of the dance floor. Adrian was beside her immediately. What did he say? That he owns us, both of us. He's bluffing. Is he? Adrian didn't answer. The rest of the reception passed in a haze. Ava smiled until her face hurt, made small talk with people whose names she'd forget by morning, and pretended everything was fine. But when the guests finally started leaving and Vincent announced it was time for them to go to the hotel suite he'd arranged, Ava felt her composure crack. I need a minute, she told Adrian. Ava, please, just a minute. She walked out onto the balcony, the cool night air hitting her like a slap. The city stretched out below her, and for a moment she let herself imagine jumping, not to die, just to escape. But she'd already tried running, and it had led her right back here. Footsteps behind her made her turn. Adrian stood in the doorway, his tie loosened and his jacket gone. You okay? No? Yeah. Me neither. He walked over and leaned against the railing beside her. We don't have to go to the hotel, he said. We can stay here, sleep in separate rooms, figure out the rest tomorrow. Your father will understand, or he won't. Either way, I'm not going to force you into something you don't want. Ava looked at him. What do you want? Adrian's laugh was hollow. Honestly, I want to go back to the mountains, to when things were simple. Things were never simple. No, but they felt like it. Ava turned back to the city. I keep thinking about what my father said, about debt and leverage, about how he owns you. He doesn't own me, doesn't he? Your family's debt is cleared now, the wedding happened, but that doesn't mean you're free. Neither are you. I know. They stood in silence. So what do we do? Adrian asked. Ava's mind raced. The plan had been to get married, play along long enough to gain some leverage, then disappear. But Vincent had made it clear that running wasn't an option, which meant they needed a different strategy. We need to find something, Ava said slowly. Something we can use against him. Like what? I don't know. But my father didn't build his empire legally. There has to be something. Records, emails, proof of deals that wouldn't hold up under scrutiny. You're talking about taking him down. I'm talking about leveling the playing field. Adrian was quiet. That's dangerous, Ava. If he finds out, then we make sure he doesn't. How? She turned to face him. We do what we've been doing. We play the part. We act like the perfect newlyweds. And while he's focused on his next deal, we dig. And if we don't find anything, then we're no worse off than we are now. Adrian studied her face. You're serious about this? Completely. He exhaled slowly. Okay, then we do it, but carefully. One wrong move and... I know. Adrian reached out and took her hand. We're in this together. You understand that, right? Whatever happens, we face it together. Ava squeezed his fingers. Together. A voice from inside made them both turn. Vincent stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. The car's waiting, he said. Unless you'd prefer to spend your wedding night on a balcony. Ava forced a smile. We're coming. Vincent nodded and disappeared back inside. Adrian looked at Ava. Ready? No. But let's go anyway. They walked back through the ballroom, now empty except for staff cleaning up. The car was idling outside and a driver held the door open. Ava climbed in, Adrian sliding in beside her. As they pulled away from her father's house, Ava looked back at the building that had been her prison for 26 years. She'd walked out as Ava Moretti. She was coming back as Ava DeLuca. Different name, same cage, but this time she had the key. She just had to figure out how to use it. The hotel suite was obscene. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park, a bedroom the size of Ava's entire hostel in Barcelona, marble everything. Vincent had spared no expense, which somehow made it worse. Adrian closed the door behind them and stood there, hands in his pockets, looking as uncomfortable as Ava felt. "I can take the couch," he said. "It's a suite. There's probably 3 other rooms." "Right." Neither of them moved. "This is awkward," Ava said finally. "Yeah, we're married. Legally, yes. But not really." Adrian looked at her. "What do you want it to be?" Ava crossed to the window, pressing her palm against the cool glass. "I don't know. A partnership, maybe. An alliance against our fathers." "That's pretty clinical." "Would you prefer romantic? Because I'm fresh out of romance after being lied to for 6 weeks." The words came out harsher than she intended, and she saw Adrian flinch. "I deserved that." "You did." He walked over and stood beside her, both of them staring out at the city. "For what it's worth," he said quietly, "I meant what I said at the wedding. I will stand by you, even if you hate me." "I don't hate you. You should. Probably, but spite has never been my strong suit." Adrian's mouth twitched. "Mine neither." They stood in silence for a moment. "We start tomorrow," Ava said, "looking for evidence against my father." "Where do we start?" "His office. He keeps files on everything, records going back decades. If there's dirt, it's there." "And how do we get access?" Ava smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "I'm his daughter. He'll never suspect me." "Are you sure about that?" "No, but I'm betting on his arrogance. He thinks he's won, that I'm finally falling in line." "And if you're wrong?" "Then we improvise." Adrian studied her face. "You've changed since Barcelona." "I had to." "I'm not complaining, just observing." Ava turned to face him fully. "You want to know what I learned running away?" "What?" "That freedom isn't about where you are. It's about who controls your choices. And I'm done letting other people make them for me." Adrian's expression softened. "Then let's make sure you never have to again." The next morning, Ava woke to sunlight streaming through windows she'd forgotten to close. Adrian was already up, standing in the kitchen area with 2 cups of coffee. "Couldn't sleep?" she asked. "Kept thinking about what we're about to do. Second thoughts? Third and fourth, too." He handed her a cup. "But I'm still in." Ava took a sip. It was perfect. He remembered how she took it. "We need a plan," she said. "Something concrete." Adrian pulled out his phone and set it on the counter. "I made a list. People your father does business with, shell companies, offshore accounts, property acquisitions that don't make sense." Ava looked at the screen. "Where did you get all this?" "I've been watching him for months, trying to figure out if there was a way to get my family out of debt without the marriage." He paused. "Obviously, that didn't work out." "Obviously. But the research is still good. If we can prove he's been laundering money or hiding assets from the IRS, we might have leverage." Ava scrolled through the list, her mind racing. "This is good. But we need hard evidence, documents, digital trails, something a prosecutor could actually use." "Your father's too smart to leave that lying around." "Maybe. But everyone makes mistakes." Adrian leaned against the counter. "So what's the play?" "I go to his office today, tell him I want to learn the family business, that I'm ready to take my place. He'll never buy that." "He will if I sell it right. He's been waiting my entire life for me to show interest. This is exactly what he wants." "And while you're playing devoted daughter?" "You visit your father, see how he's doing, act like the dutiful son." Adrian's jaw tightened. "I don't know if I can face him right now." "You have to. If we're both suddenly interested in our family businesses, it looks suspicious. But if we're doing it separately, it just looks like we're settling into married life." He didn't argue, which meant he knew she was right. "Okay," he said finally, "but we check in every hour. And if anything feels wrong, we abort." "Agreed." Ava arrived at her father's office at 10. The building was one of those midtown towers that screamed money and power, all glass and steel and security guards who looked like they could bench press a car. Vincent's assistant, a severe woman named Margaret, who'd worked for him for 20 years, looked surprised when Ava walked in. "Mrs. DeLuca, we weren't expecting you." The name still felt foreign. "Is my father in?" "He's in a meeting, but I'll wait." Ava sat in one of the leather chairs outside Vincent's office and pulled out her phone. A text from Adrian. "At the hospital. Dad's sleeping, going through his files." She texted back, "Be careful." 20 minutes later, Vincent's door opened and 3 men in expensive suits filed out. Her father appeared in the doorway, looking mildly surprised. "Ava, what are you doing here?" "I want to talk." "About?" "The business." His eyebrows rose. "Come in." She followed him into his office, a massive space with a view that probably cost more than most people made in a year. He gestured to a chair, and she sat. "I'm listening," he said. Ava took a breath, channeling every ounce of composure she had. "I've been thinking about what you said at the wedding, about legacy and family. And you're right." Vincent leaned back in his chair, studying her. "Right about what?" "I can't run forever. And if I'm going to be part of this family, really part of it, I need to understand how it works." "You want to learn the business?" "Yes." He was quiet for a long moment, his fingers steepled under his chin. "Why now?" "Because I'm tired of being powerless. You've spent my whole life making decisions for me, and I hated you for it. But maybe you were right. Maybe the only way to have any control is to understand the game." It physically hurt to say the words, but Ava forced herself to hold his gaze. Vincent smiled. "I've been waiting a long time to hear you say that. So you'll teach me?" "I'll do better than that. I'll give you real responsibility, projects, accounts, let you prove yourself." Ava's heart raced, but she kept her expression neutral. "When do I start?" "Now." He stood and walked to a filing cabinet, pulling out a thick folder. "This is the Peterson acquisition. We're buying a shipping company out of Miami. Due diligence is almost complete, but I need someone to review the contracts, make sure everything's airtight." He handed her the folder, and Ava took it, trying not to show how her hands were shaking. "I won't let you down. I know you won't, because if you do, it won't just be your reputation on the line. It'll be Adrian's family, too." The threat was subtle but clear. Ava forced a smile. "I understand." She left his office with the folder tucked under her arm and didn't breathe until she was in the elevator. Her phone buzzed. Adrian. "Found something. Medical files. Treatment records." Ava. "For what?" Adrian. "Your father's been paying my dad's medical bills, all of them, for the past 2 years." Her stomach dropped. Ava. "Why would he do that?" Adrian. "Leverage. If my dad dies owing him money, he controls the estate. Everything we own." Ava closed her eyes. Of course. Her father never did anything without strings attached. She texted back, "Keep looking. I got contracts for a shipping company." Going through them now. She spent the rest of the day in a coffee shop 3 blocks from Vincent's office, poring over the Peterson acquisition. Most of it was standard legal language, but buried in the appendices, she found something interesting. A shell company listed as a silent partner. No names attached, just an LLC registered in the Cayman Islands. She took a photo of the page and sent it to Adrian. His response came 5 minutes later. "That's one of the companies on my list. 3rd-tier holding. Probably where he's hiding cash." Ava. "Can we prove it?" Adrian. "Not yet, but it's a start." They met back at the hotel that evening, both exhausted and wired. Adrian spread his findings across the dining table. Medical records, bills, correspondence between Vincent and various offshore accounts. "He's been playing a long game," Adrian said, "keeping my father alive just long enough to maintain control. The second he dies, Vincent absorbs everything." Ava added her findings to the pile. "And he's using the acquisitions to funnel money overseas, probably tax evasion, maybe worse." "So what do we do with it?" Ava looked at the documents scattered across the table. "We need more. This isn't enough to take him down. It's just enough to make him suspicious if he finds out we're looking. Then we keep digging." Over the next 2 weeks, they fell into a routine. Ava went to Vincent's office every day, playing the role of eager student while secretly copying files and photographing documents. Adrian split his time between visiting his father and tracking financial records through a contact he had at a forensic accounting firm. They barely slept, barely ate. The suite became command central, walls covered in printouts and notes, timelines and connections drawn in marker. And somewhere in the midst of it all, something shifted. They stopped sleeping in separate rooms. Not because of romance or desire, but because it was easier to work side by side, to fall asleep mid-conversation and wake up still talking. Ava learned that Adrian took his coffee black after midnight and that he had a scar on his left shoulder from a skiing accident when he was 12. She learned that he'd wanted to be an architect, but his father had pushed him into the family business. That he played piano but hadn't touched one in years. And Adrian learned that Ava could go 48 hours without sleep if she was focused on something. That she had a photographic memory for numbers. That she'd always wanted to write, but her father had called it a waste of time. They learned each other in the quiet hours between planning and execution, in the moments when they were too tired to keep their walls up, and Ava realized, somewhere around 3 in the morning on the 15th day, that she trusted him. Not because she'd forgiven the lies, but because he'd kept his promise. No more deception, no more half-truths, just two people trying to survive. On the 18th day, Adrian's contact came through. The forensic accountant had traced the offshore accounts to a network of shell companies that funneled money through 3 continents. Millions of dollars. Decades of tax evasion. And the paper trail led directly back to Vincent. "This is it," Adrian said, staring at the report. "This is enough." Ava looked at the evidence spread before them. "We need to take it to the FBI. Your father has connections there. We need someone we can trust. Then we go to the press. Leak it. Make it too big to bury." Adrian shook his head. "If we leak it, he'll know it came from us, and he'll retaliate. So what do you suggest?" Adrian was quiet for a long moment. "We give him a choice. Turn himself in, or we release everything. He'll never do it. Then we release it anyway. But at least we tried." Ava looked at the man sitting across from her. The man she'd married out of desperation and necessity. The man who'd lied to her and broken her trust. The man who'd kept his word ever since. "Okay," she said. "We do it your way." They arranged a meeting at Vincent's office for the following day. Just the 3 of them. When they walked in, Vincent looked pleased. "To what do I owe this visit?" Ava set a folder on his desk. "We need to talk." Vincent opened it, his expression shifting as he flipped through the pages. "Where did you get this?" "Does it matter?" His eyes went cold. "You've been spying on me." "We've been protecting ourselves." Vincent stood, his hands flat on the desk. "This is how you repay me? After everything I've done for you?" "Everything you've done to me," Ava corrected. "There's a difference. I gave you a life most people would kill for. You gave me a cage." Vincent's jaw tightened. "And him?" He gestured to Adrian. "What's his excuse?" Adrian stepped forward. "You were holding my father's life over my head, using his illness as leverage. I'm done being your pawn." Vincent laughed. "You think you have power here? You think this," he tapped the folder, "changes anything?" "It changes everything," Ava said. "You turn yourself in, cooperate with the authorities, or we release this to every major news outlet in the country." "You wouldn't. Try us." Vincent stared at them, and for the first time, Ava saw something like uncertainty in his eyes. "If you do this, you'll destroy everything. Not just me, your name, your family, everything you've ever known." "I know," Ava said quietly, "but I'd rather have nothing and be free than have everything and be owned." Vincent sank back into his chair. "You're making a mistake." "Maybe, but it's my mistake to make." For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then Vincent reached for his phone. "What are you doing?" Adrian asked. "Calling my lawyer." Ava's heart raced. "Does that mean—" "It means I'm not going down without a fight, but I'm also not stupid enough to think I can win this one." He made the call, and within an hour, his lawyer arrived with a representative from the FBI. Ava and Adrian gave their statements, handed over the evidence, and watched as federal agents began combing through Vincent's files. When it was over, Vincent looked at Ava one last time. "I hope it was worth it." "It was," she said. He was arrested 3 days later. The news broke like a bomb. Every major outlet ran the story. Vincent Moretti, powerful businessman and philanthropist, arrested for tax evasion, money laundering, and fraud. The empire he'd built over 40 years collapsed in 72 hours, and Ava watched it all from the hotel suite, feeling nothing but relief. Adrian's father passed away a week later. Peacefully, surrounded by family, his debts cleared and his dignity intact. At the funeral, Adrian stood beside Ava, holding her hand. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" "For giving him peace. He died knowing he wasn't leaving us with nothing." Ava squeezed his fingers. "We're not nothing." "No, we're not." After the funeral, they went back to the suite and stared at the walls covered in evidence that was no longer needed. "What now?" Ava asked. Adrian looked at her. "I don't know. What do you want?" Ava thought about it, really thought about it. For the first time in her life, nobody was telling her what to do. Nobody was making decisions for her. The future was wide open, terrifying, and hers. "I want to write," she said finally. "I've always wanted to write." "Then write." "Just like that?" "Just like that." She looked at him. "What about you?" Adrian smiled. "I think I'll go back to school, study architecture, build something that's actually mine." "And us?" The question hung in the air. Adrian walked over and took her hands. "I don't know what we are. I don't know if what we have is real or just trauma bonding or something in between. But I know I don't want to lose you." Ava's throat felt tight. "I don't want to lose you either." "So we figure it out, together. No plans, no scripts, just us." "That sounds terrifying." "Yeah, it does." Ava laughed and it felt good, real. "Okay, let's be terrified together." 6 months later, Ava sat in a coffee shop in Brooklyn, her laptop open in front of her. The manuscript she'd been working on was nearly finished. A story about a girl who ran away and found herself in the process. Fiction, mostly, but with enough truth to hurt. Adrian walked in, a portfolio tucked under his arm and paint on his jeans. He'd started taking classes at Pratt, diving into design with the kind of passion Ava had never seen in him before. He slid into the seat across from her and kissed her forehead. "How's the book?" "Almost done." "Can I read it?" "Not yet. When it's finished." "Fair enough." He pulled out his phone. "I got the internship." Ava looked up. "The one in Copenhagen?" "Yeah, they want me to start in the fall." Her chest tightened. "That's amazing." "It is, but it's also 6 months in Europe." "I know." Adrian reached across the table and took her hand. "Come with me." "Adrian, I know we said no plans, but I'm asking anyway. Come with me. Write your book. See the world. Let's build something together." Ava looked at him. At the man who'd lied to her and broken her trust, and somehow still managed to become the person she trusted most. "What if it doesn't work?" "Then we'll figure it out, like we always do." Ava thought about the girl she'd been in Barcelona, scared, running, desperate for freedom. And she thought about the woman she was now, still scared, still figuring it out, but no longer running. "Okay," she said. "Yeah?" "Yeah, let's go to Copenhagen." Adrian smiled and Ava realized something. Freedom wasn't about distance. It wasn't about escaping or hiding or building walls. It was about choosing, every day, who you wanted to be, who you wanted to become. And she was choosing this. Choosing him. Not because she had to, not because someone forced her, but because for the first time in her life, she actually wanted to. 3 years later, Ava stood in a small apartment in Manhattan, boxes stacked against the walls. The book had done better than she'd expected. Not a bestseller, but enough to pay rent and fund a second one. Adrian's architecture firm had started taking off. Small projects at first, but growing. They'd come back from Copenhagen after a year, both ready to build something permanent. And now they were moving into a place of their own. Not a hotel suite, not borrowed space, theirs. Adrian walked in carrying another box, his hair longer now, a beard he'd grown and refused to shave. "Last one," he said. "Thank God." He set it down and pulled her close. "You okay?" "Yeah, just thinking." "About?" "How different everything is. How I barely recognized the person I was when we met." Adrian kissed her temple. "Good different or bad different?" "Just different." She pulled back and looked at him. "Do you ever regret it? Everything that happened?" "The lying? Yes, every day." "Not that. Everything else." Adrian thought about it. "No, because it gave me you, And even with everything we went through, I wouldn't trade that. Ava smiled. Me neither. They spent the rest of the afternoon unpacking, arguing about where furniture should go, ordering takeout when they got too tired to cook. And when the sun set and they collapsed on the couch surrounded by half-empty boxes, Ava realized something. She was happy. Not perfectly happy. Not without scars or fears or moments of doubt, but happy in a way that felt earned, real. She'd spent her whole life waiting for someone to give her permission to exist. And now she understood. You don't wait for permission. You take it. You choose yourself. Every single day. And if you're lucky, you find someone who chooses you back. Not because they have to, but because they want to. Adrian's hand found hers in the darkness. Love you, he said quietly. Ava squeezed his fingers. Love you too. And for the first time in her life, she meant it without reservation, without fear, just truth, simple, imperfect, hers.